And God call it luck. People who understand God understand its providence.
Someone actually stopped me right at that moment and asked, would I take a picture of the two of you?
That's when you fell in love? Is that what you're trying to say? Okay, everybody heard that. She asked for a picture. I just want you to know that. Don't lose sight of that.
Then we said goodbye. Do you want to say what happened after that? Here we go.
Well, today's Unbound podcast is going to be unusually special. Each one is special, but this one is unusually special because of our very special guest. I want to welcome to the Unbound podcast my wife, Carla Evans. Welcome, Carla. Let me give you the whole name. Carla Michelle Evans. Welcome.
Hello. It's a pleasure to be here with you. And I'm not going to call your middle name Dr. Tony Evans.
All right. We're going to leave that out. Okay. Well, we're glad to have you and for a lot of reasons. One, because you are somewhat new to my world, because we've only been married, like 2.5 years, going on 3 years. And but our marriage has come out of a journey.
Yes.
And so I thought this would be a great opportunity for people to meet you, to come to know you, but also to come to understand our journey, because it's kind of been a mixture of grief and new chapters and all of the things that go with that. And so many families today have grief through loss, which we've had, and are entering into different chapters for different reasons in terms of their relationships. And so that's been our story. And I know a lot of people know about it from the broadcast or other means, but I want them to meet you because there's a lot to you that people need to know about. So first of all, by way of introduction, why don't you, Carla, introduce yourself to our audience by giving our folks a little bit of your history and background?
Okay. Well, of course, I'm Carla Evans. Now, I am a native of Michigan. I was born in Michigan to two amazing parents. I just lost my dad, actually, and my parents were married almost 62 years before my mother passed. And I had the honor and pleasure of taking care of her the last 5 months of her life. And I had the honor of caring for my dad here in Texas before he passed. And they are now together in heaven, but they were just amazing earthly parents, and I miss them. And I have one sister and one brother, and they are great. They're still in Michigan. My sister, she has 3 kids. My brother has 3 kids. They've both been married 40 and 42 years. So we have a really wonderful family. And I have 2 amazing children, Rob and Megan. And I'm from Michigan, graduated from Michigan State.
Michigan State. What were you majoring in at Michigan State?
Education. So I graduated in education, early childhood. I had a chance to go on and teach, and I retired from teaching in early childhood. I started a pre-K school there in Detroit. It really wasn't a school, more so like the classroom, but we did eventually start a school with 7 classrooms, and they picked some of the top teachers in the district.
As I recall, you got a little award, didn't you? What was that award?
I did receive an award from the governor at the time, Governor Granholm, and our mayor. So I did receive for just outstanding teaching, and I appreciated that.
Okay, so now from Michigan State, you went north, right? Northeast.
Cambridge College, where I had an opportunity to live in Boston on Harvard's Law School campus, and that was wonderful. And I was in the American Teacher magazine. So
you're kind of smart. Is that what you're trying to say?
Just kind of when I'm compared to you, who's just brilliant.
Okay. So let's fast forward a little bit.
Okay.
We're going to fast forward. You met your late husband, Robert Crummy, at our church in Dallas.
Yes.
So talk about the context of that meeting.
Okay, well, I was there to see a relative at the time preach, and you and your wife weren't there because it was a time when you all weren't there. And Robert was attending DTS at the time. He was a student, and I was actually a student still back in Michigan. So he was from DC, I was from Detroit, and we met in Dallas at Oak Cliff Bible Fellowship. And I guess he was interning for you at the time, which I didn't know.
And so you met. How did the introduction go? I mean, or did he just see you and go crazy? I mean, what was the...
Well, my uncle who was preaching, actually, he knew him and said, "Uncle, who's that? Who's your niece? Can you introduce us?" So we met, we talked. I went back to Detroit. We kind of kept in touch. And eventually we did get married and moved to Atlanta, where he was a pastor and also the president of a Bible college, which happened to be the Bible college that you graduated from first.
Well, that's the first of so many connections that Robert Crummy would go to Atlanta and become the president of the school I graduated from in my undergraduate work. So that was Carver College in Atlanta. And so you're a pastor's wife now, and you are president's wife, yes. And you were helping him in that regard. What was your role there?
I did. At the college, I was an advancement officer, so I helped him with raising money. I did events. I planned events because, of course, we had a lot of different functions. So as a wife, you jump in where you need to. And these were not paid positions. It's volunteer because you love your husband and you want to help see the school succeed. And we had a really awesome project, too, where we were able to have some Haitian students come over to Carver because their Bible college collapsed. If you all kind of remember that very bad earthquake they had. And so I was a part of helping with a donor that brought them in on a plane and let them graduate from Carver their last 2 years. And then at the church, I was over the women's ministry. We were over the couples ministry. I was an Awana commander, and I was over the minister's wives ministry.
Okay, so you were kept busy as a pastor's wife, a president's wife, and a mother and a wife. And then something happened. On my side, Lois, after 48 years or so, got ill with a very rare cancer, gallbladder cancer. And I remember the night when I was looking it up after the doctors told it what it was, and the shock I had that it was a deadly cancer. It wasn't just a regular cancer, and that the survival rate was so small for gallbladder cancer. And it was on the same night that I was getting an award at the National Religious Broadcasters for writing the study Bible and all of that. And I had to tell my kids, because that was the night I told my kids about what we had discovered. And it was on December the 30th of 2019 that Lois went home to be with the Lord after over a year of suffering with this rare cancer. And it was coming on the heels of my father passing away. My father was dying in November 2019. Lois passed in December 2019. He was in Baltimore, so I'm going back and forth, caring for my father, and then caring for Lois along with my kids. So this was a time of deep emotional strain and still trying to keep things going at the church. And I want you to pick it up from there with what happened with you and Robert in this same time period.
Okay, I can actually remember the exact moment when Robert told me that Lois passed. I mean, because he was very familiar with you all and had spent time with you all that I had not had. And he was really hurt and devastated. And he said, we're going to really have to, we're going to have to go there and support them. And Robert didn't have any health problems. He wasn't taking any medicine. But on the morning of January 2nd, 2020, he was taking our son to work, backing out of the driveway, and experienced a massive heart attack that took his life. And we had already planned that we were going to come to Lois's homegoing celebration, but he passed before we could get there.
Yeah, I remember seeing a notice, which is a few days before Lois's funeral, that Robert had passed away, and it was like a dream. I couldn't even grab it. Of course, I'm dealing with my own grief and with my family, and then to see that shock was just. So we are both grieving. You're in Atlanta, and I'm in Dallas, and we're both grieving at the same time and having to struggle with. Yours was a sudden loss. Mine had some time associated with it, and unfortunately, grief comes with life. You had already lost your mother. I had just lost my father. I had previously lost my mother. I had previously lost my brother. I had previously lost my sister. I previously lost my sister's husband. My niece died at 39 here in Dallas, just prior to that. And so I've got this string of losses that I'm coming through, and you go through this devastating loss as you're planning to come to my wife's funeral. And so, as you reflect on that period, how did you wrestle through this loss at this time, this way, and your faith? How did those two come together?
Well, I had to lean into Jesus. That's the only thing I could do. And also being the pastor's wife at that time, there's a role that you feel too that you have to honor. And in trying to cover Robert in his absence, I felt that I had to lead too, as far as even at the church. So I had to be strong for the people at church. I had to show them my strength and faith in Jesus Christ. So with me trying to cover my children, with me trying to cover the congregation, those things held me up. So it was later on when I wasn't doing that thing, because a couple months later, if you remember, the pandemic hit. So that was a different time for everybody. So we were all huddled down. But prior to that, I kept my head up. I let everybody know, hey, to be absent from the body is to be present with the Lord. And I wanted to stay strong for my children and for the congregation. And I did. But once that pandemic hit and I was alone, everybody was in isolation at that time. It's more of when my grieving really began to kick in.
Jesus says, in this world you will have tribulation, but sometimes you want to ask him to give you a break, yes. But you have to trust him in the dark, and like Job had to do, when you're not getting answers, you ask why. I always say it's okay to ask God questions. You just can't question God, because those aren't the same thing. But I was asking a whole bunch of questions. Why this? Why now? Because on my side, we were 70 years old and low at that point, and we had planned some things for the future, kind of rolling things back and taking some time, and we didn't get that time that was yes. We talked about. And you say, God, why did you allow this? Did you have many why questions?
I don't know if I got to the whys. I was just in the moment, and we were not at that place where you and Lois were. Our big thing that we did, like maybe that year before, I always would bring my school teacher into the house, and we were huddled down because of a storm. So we did these vision boards. So I had everybody do vision boards. I brought all my school supplies. And when we did our vision boards, I can remember Robert's just like it was yesterday. And his vision board showed like two older people sitting on a bench and looking down at some little kids. And so his vision for us was that we would get to that place of being an empty nest and being grandparents, which those things didn't occur. So frequently later after that, I did say, goodness, we never had our chance at being an empty nest or being grandparents, something that a lot of people look forward to. So those were the things that came up for me. And I also want to just piggyback on something you said about all of your losses. People didn't realize that not only did I have my mom and Robert, but we had a lot of losses right at the same time in my family, because just the year before Robert passed, he lost his sister and brother, which was my sister-in-law and brother-in-law. They passed. Then my mom passed. Then right after my mom passed, her brother passed. Wow. Then Robert passed in January, and my sister's mother-in-law, who had been in our family for 40 so years, she passed the same month as Robert. And they actually had the same birthday too, July 21st, and they passed the same month in January. And then my uncle, who was at all those funerals with us, when the pandemic hit in April, he caught COVID and he died. So we had about 7 or 8 losses within that year and a half time span too.
Well, 1 Thessalonians 4 says that we sorrow, but not as those who have no hope. And because we have a shared faith in a risen Savior who offers eternal life, and we know where our loved ones who have come to Christ are, it sustains you in emotions that sometimes don't feel sustainable. And that's why our Christian faith has to be at the root, because we never know what a day will bring. Yeah. But if heaven is real, and since heaven is real, and there is an eternal future, we don't have to sorrow hopelessly, but hopefully. Yes. And so moving this along now, after we've gone through our journey of grief, you and I bump into each other at a Dallas Seminary event.
Yes.
Okay? So I'll start it off and then you can fill it in, because I'm not sure this story will come out equally. So, so I'm preaching at the installation of the new president of Dallas Seminary.
Yes.
And when I finish preaching, I come down to take off my robe, my regalia, and to put on my jacket. So I go upstairs to do that. I'm coming down. You are coming out of the ladies' room, as I recall, and we pass each other.
Yes.
I do not recognize you, but you recognize me.
Yes.
Of course, you know who I am.
Right.
But I don't really know who you are.
Yes.
Okay, so you pick it up there. Tell the truth. Tell the devil.
Well, someone actually stopped me right at that moment and asked, would I take a picture of the two of you? I don't know if you kind of remember.
I remember well. I just want to make sure the story is straight. Go ahead.
Oh, goodness. So I took the picture, and then that was when I said, hey, I'm Carla, and I just want to extend my sympathies to you, and you said the same to me. And then I said, well, we can take a picture too, since the people had taken a picture.
Okay, everybody heard that. She asked for a picture. I just want you to know that. Don't lose sight of that. Go ahead.
Right, and I still have that picture. Who would have known? I still have that picture. And, so we talked after that. You and I talked, and you said, hey, I'm sorry. I heard about Robert too, and I didn't get to extend my sympathies to you. And so we talked briefly, and then we said goodbye. Do you want to say what happened after that? Okay, look.
No,
okay.
I'll let you go ahead.
Okay.
You're on a roll.
Okay, so after we exchanged our sympathies, we said goodbye. You turned around, I turned around. It was a good time for us to just let each other know we had those condolences. I turned around, I felt a tap, and it was like, Carla. And I turned around, and you said, well, I want to pray with you later. Will you give up those digits? No, he was very gentleman about it, very pastoral. Carla, I would like to pray with you.
And folks, just let me drop in here. That was a real that was a real statement about prayer. There was no ulterior motives. I had seen this lady for 5 minutes, okay, at this point. Okay, go ahead.
Okay. I will help you out. I do believe that it was just because I had to add something to add some humor to this, right?
Okay,
So anyway, you were truly a man of your word, because I think, was it maybe a week later, possibly, you did call and you said, hey, I just want to pray with you because I felt really bad at that time when it happened, that I know Robert was a really dear friend, and how you must have felt losing your husband. And you prayed with me. And at the end of the conversation, you did say, hey, just here is my number. If you ever need anything, just call if you need prayer, which I thought was wonderful. And I think it was maybe a month later, I did call. I was with a cousin that came, and she took me to this place called Callaway Gardens in Georgia. Very beautiful resort area, just to pray. So I was just outside, I was praying, and I honestly did think of you, because at that moment, like, my sister's like my best friend, and I could call her, and she's been married, but she really couldn't still understand the loss, because as much as she loves me, she had not lost a spouse. And at that moment, I wanted to connect with someone who understood the pain that I was feeling at that moment, and I called you. And now, to know you and how busy you are, I know it was only but God. You answered. I only called once, and you answered, and you were able to offer me prayer. And in that moment, I felt comforted by your prayer, because I knew you understood the pain that I was feeling at that time.
You used 2 words, but God, because one of the great truths in the Bible is the doctrine of providence. Yes. Providence is God's invisible hand orchestrating people, places, things, and events to achieve his program. The Bible is full of providential links and connections. People who do not understand God call it luck. Mm-hmm. Okay? Mm-hmm. People who understand God understand its providence.
Yes.
I don't want to get too technical. God is sovereign. He controls everything. But the way he does things is often not overt. It's often invisible, and that invisible hand just connects things. This meeting began a series of providential connections that kept us linked. So walk through the doctrine of providence as it applied to you and me in this connection, because after that phone call,
we did not talk.
Yeah, it was over. I called you, you called me, calls were over, prayed for you. Okay, now pick up the invisible hand.
The invisible hand. Later, a friend of Robert's that had been on the board became the president of Carver College. And because I had been dedicated to the ministry, I still was, even with him as a lead. I said I can always still help. So I get a call from him to say, hey, Dr. Tony Evans is coming down because they're going to be doing some filming, and we would like for you to lead up the hospitality ministry. If you could just host him and, just do whatever you need to do to host him, make sure the crew is okay. And of course, I said, sure, I'll do that. So I'm around the block from my house, because I live right around the block from Carver College. So I go and host. And this is later that year. So that was earlier, like you said, about 1.5 years. This is, I think, about October, maybe. So it was maybe 8 months or so after we had that first kind of meeting. And you all came, and we got a chance to talk when you all came to Carver. And then you all came a second time, a couple months later, and he called. They're coming again, Carla. Can you host? You did a great job. Can you host? And I hosted. We put flowers out, made sure you all had food, and we talked more. And I think that is when things...
That's when you fell in love? Is that what you're trying to say?
Well, I think that's when God was moving. God was moving because I really wasn't thinking about love at that time, but I was getting appreciation to know you better and who you were. And that's kind of where things took off. So I think my next call was a call from you. It was still some months, I believe, after that, because you were going to be in Atlanta and you invited me to dinner. And I was like, oh, okay. I had no idea. I just was like, okay, well, Dr. Tony Evans wants to talk about ministry.
Come on, tell the truth and shame the devil. Why don't you?
I did not think.
I'm calling you and asking you for dinner because I want to talk about the ministry.
I was naive, I guess.
All right. Okay, so moving forward, it is obvious we have developed a relationship that's going somewhere.
Yes.
One of the things I admired in our trips to Carver was watching you care for your father, because your mother had passed, and he was with you at each of these events. And so I got to meet him, and he loved the Lord, he loved church, and he's full of wisdom. He always had these wise sayings, And so I was enjoying him, but I was also watching because he was living with you, and you were his caregiver, so to speak, at that point. And so that was very impressive to see that care for your dad, that honoring of your father, and of course seeing your personality. And there's a word that I know we use regarding you. And I want you to talk about it because it's a biblical word. One of my books is Kingdom Kindness, okay? And, we have this initiative where we encourage people Christians to do act of kindness as an opportunity to share the gospel. But one of the things I was noticing is that exuded from you very naturally, this idea of kindness. So talk to me about that part of you and your feelings and your belief about that.
Well, it goes back to the Bible. And God says in his commandments to love thy neighbor. And just really from creation, when I was born, I've always had just a love for people. And even to this day, I always try to love God's people. And I always believe you treat people the way you want to be treated. As a classroom teacher, that was my rule. I didn't have no running, no fighting, no kicking. It just said, treat people the way you want to be treated. And I called it the golden rule, and it was in a little gold bubble. And I talked to people. I said, would you want somebody to hit you? Would you want somebody to hurt you? And they said, no. I said, so you don't do that to other people. So one rule was applicable. And I think I'm kind of like a fruit of the spirits, Galatians 5:22 lady. I feel like I exude it, and I believe it, and it's in my heart. Just love, joy, patience, kindness, peace, goodness, and faithfulness. Those are things that I truly just believe in. And if I'm around someone, I want to add peace to their life. I'm not a person of confusion or disorder. I like to laugh, and I just like to love. And that's who I am. And I thank God, like I said, for my parents, because they incorporated that in our home. So you could come in our house and everybody would be laughing. You might think somebody had alcohol around because everybody was, but it was no alcohol. Nobody was drinking or smoking. But we had the joy of the Lord, and we had laughter. And everybody knows my dad. He used to like to dance. Yes, so we would watch Soul Train and do our chores on Saturday morning. So we just had a house that was full of joy and love, and that's where it comes from. And that's what I like to bring to people's life. If I'm at a grocery store, and you've been there now, you see wherever I go in my interaction with people, I want to be that fisherman of men. I want people to see my love for Jesus so they will want to grow their relationship in Christ, that they will want to come to know Jesus if they don't. I want them to see, and that's where we're supposed to be, an example. Whereas so many people nowadays, it's mean, it's wars, it's all kinds of stuff going on. But if we could all just love and have kindness and that peace, I think it'd be a better world.
I can honestly say I've been mesmerized by how you exude kindness, because when I see you move among people, bump into people, whether it's a grocery store, you are always saying something kind. I mean, we're on an airplane, and people and the stewardesses are saying, "Who is that lady? That is the nicest lady I've ever seen." We were on a plane the other day, and the stewardess is talking to you half the flight because she is just enthralled with how nice you are. And so I guess stewardess these days, they need to see nice, but you, I've just, and you don't have to work at it. You just do it. And of course, I'm a beneficiary of nice. I mean, you want to know if I want breakfast in bed. So that's, you can't get nicer than that. So yeah, you exude that, and you also transmit it and are encouraging other people to take it up. So you're trying to get other people to be that way. So that is definitely a winning characteristic of Carla Evans. Okay, that you are so kind.
Thank you.
We're in a second chapter.
Yes.
Second chapters don't always come with ease. They come with challenges. I mean, I've got 4 adult children, 13 grandchildren, 5 great-grandchildren who were doggedly in love with their grandmother and great-grandmother, And the thought that somebody else is coming into that space can bring challenges, like that. And of course, you're entering into another relationship. I remember sitting with your father, and I dismissed you from the table and talked to your father about whether he would allow me to marry you. And the thing he wanted to know was I going to take care of his daughter, because he did not want his daughter, who was so kind, to be in an environment that wasn't kind. And I committed to that. But still, you enter into another world. You're relocating to Dallas. So for people, because so many people are entering into second chapters,
yes.
whether it's death, whether it's divorce, and remarriage, and there's luggage sometimes they bring with them. We had the benefit of a shared faith,
yes.
and a shared ministry connection. So if you were advising, because one of your gifts is you got what do you call it from John Maxwell,
life coach.
Life coach. Okay, you got the designation from John Maxwell as a life coach. The people who are entering into the second chapter of life, what would you say to them in terms of adapting to this new reality? Some things to learn, some things to avoid as they come into this reality.
Okay, I want to answer that question. And if it's okay, Robert used to say, "Can I put a dime in the meter?" And that would mean, can I just say something? And I want to say something right before I answer that question.
Okay.
Is I do give Lois Evans the highest praise. I thank God for her as a woman that I admired as a pastor's wife, because I had a chance to attend some conferences. So I think she was an incredible wife, mother, and person. I think you all built a wonderful thing together. So I do want to say that. And I think you all have 4 incredible children. And I do understand going into just as 2, Robert was amazing as well.
Absolutely.
But just because we're here and this is TUA, I want to give her homage and pay homage where it's due. And I will always respect you all's relationship and what you all had. I don't want to replace her. I don't want to be her. This is something God orchestrated with us. As I tell people, I was in Atlanta minding my own business. I was not looking for a husband, or especially one that was Dr. Tony Evans, and to come into all of this. So yes, it is a lot. So going to your question, what I would say about maybe even the blending and coming together, families, a second chance, is I think if you're on the outside of the people that are in that relationship, to try to have patience and kindness. And if you are a true believer of God and you believe God brought those people together, trust God, because we have to trust Him in trials and tribulations. And God said we will have those. And if someone comes into their life that makes them happy and they still have a little bit of time on this side, try and be happy for them. I know it could be difficult, but in that difficulty, just love that person and try to love and just try to see their happiness. Now, if someone comes into the life of someone that you love and they're corrupt and they're mean and they're causing this person agony or misery, yeah, we're going to be kind of upset and worried. But if you see joy and happiness, try and have that joy and happiness for them, and, just keep them in prayer. And just, we have to slowly make the adjustments. And I understand how that could be a tough task for anybody when they've been used to something else. It takes some time, like anything else, adjusting to a new job, adjusting to a whole new life, adjusting to change. But change is ultimately always going to happen. And ultimately, we do know we will all go to that other side. It's just a matter of time. And so when we do still have the time here on earth, if we can be happy and enjoy that time while we have, because just like Robert, it was sudden, you don't know when your time is up. And I've heard you preach so eloquently about you can be 10, but if you're going to pass at 10, your time is real short at 5. So you have explained the difference, because we don't know that time. So for the time that we have, I am truly grateful for the blessing that God gave me with you, because I am